All right, welcome to another edition, Industry 45 Podcast Show. I'm your host, Shane Christopher Neal. Thanks for joining me. GiantTV.ca is the website. This one you can check out at country89.com as well, and musiclifemagazine.net. Today, from Los Angeles, California, I chat with country artist Rachel Talbott. We talk about a couple of her brand new singles. One you're listening to right now. It's called Feels Like Home. We're going to chat about that. That was her first release in October of 2019. She also has a brand new song out on country radio called Backseat Driver. And Rachel was born into a musical family. Her parents met in Las Vegas while her dad, Warren Ham, was on tour with none other than Cher. Not only did he play with Cher, but also the likes of Donna Summer, Olivia Newton-John. So we're going to chat with Rachel about, growing up around celebrities, right? And right now, Warren is playing with Toto and the Ringo Starr All-Star Band as well. And speaking of celebrities, one of Rachel's most prominent studio sessions was when she recorded backup vocals for none other than Britney Spears' Femme, Fatale album. We'll get into that. And not only a great musician, a great songwriter, but Rachel also is a great content creator. Yeah, she makes lifestyle videos for her audience of over 1.3 million women. We're going to chat about that. Her husband, Brian, is a chef. So much to get to. Coming up right now, the Industry 45 Podcast Show with Rachel Talbott. All right, Industry 45 Podcast Show, and we are doing this from a safe social distance. I believe my guest, Rachel, is outside Los Angeles or somewhere out that way, and here I am in Southern Ontario. How you doing, Rachel?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Hey, no problem. And I want to kind of start with, this, what we're dealing with in this world, man, is crazy. And I'm going to get into this, but you do some great things on YouTube, not only with your music, but also some other things as well in the vein of lifestyle and such. But what's kind of kept you sane over the last little bit? Because I think for any artist, it's just been a crazy time.
Yeah, it's definitely crazy times. Obviously we're here, my kids are home, we're homeschooling, life has shifted a little bit, but I'm so thankful that we have space. We have a little bit of property, and we've had, a lot of different, we're so busy, and I feel like we're always busy with a million different things going on at any given time. And I feel like the one thing that has kept me sane during this time is the fact that I have all of these projects and things that I've been wanting to do at home, but, you're out and about, you have all these reasons to get out and go, socialize or work or whatever it is that you do, and you don't always get to those projects. And so that has been the one thing that's been keeping us sane, is honestly spending time outside and working on a lot of our projects, working on our garden and our barn and all the things that we're kind of working on our property. So I'm very thankful for that. And, but it's, I know a lot of people who are feeling really claustrophobic right now, and just kind of trying to find ways to be creative. So, just trying to be creative as always, and trying to stay positive, because it is a scary time.
Absolutely. And you were raised in a music family, and
Yep.
So talk about, so your dad's Warren, right? And I kind of thought it was really cool that he played with Cher, because I'm a massive Cher fan. And now, is he playing with Toto now and Ringo Starr, or he did? I mean, not that anybody's playing right now.
At the moment, obviously everything's on hold, but he's currently in Ringo's All-Star Band, and then he also tours with Toto, and he toured with Toto in the 80s as well, before I was born, and also when I was very, very, very young. And with Cher specifically, he did he was in a band. Him and his brother were in a band that got absorbed by Cher, so they were the Ham brothers. And then I believe, if I'm recalling this correctly, they played with a band called Bread, and then they were also absorbed by Cher. And then they did the Vegas gig for several years at Caesar's Palace. And that's actually how my parents met, because my mom went to go see that show. She saw my dad singing with Cher and tried to meet him after the show, and the rest is history. So, and it's been interesting, because I grew up with my dad really playing with a lot of the greatest acts of the 70s and 80s. I mean, he was with Olivia Newton-John all through my preteen and teenage years, seeing her on stage night after night, phenomenal, professional, just such a sweet spirit. And, you know, it was just, I was constantly exposed to incredible music, incredible talent. And it was great. Honestly, it was really inspiring as a child.
So were you able to, because I mean, I wouldn't know, did you go to the shows and sit like backstage and kind of get to meet them? And like, you know, I see these photos of these kids growing up, and it's kind of really cool how they get to, you know, hang around with Madonna or Lady Gaga or whoever it is.
Yeah.
Is that what your life was like? Like just kind of, hey, and probably for you it was like, hey, this is nothing.
Yeah, well, you know, to a certain extent, I mean, he was always, from our perspective, he was a struggling musician. So he would have a job, and then they wouldn't go on tour for several months, and he wouldn't have work. And so it was always just great admiration and respect for anybody who did hire him. And, you know, it was like we were always very excited whenever, you know, again, he was with Olivia Newton-John for, gosh, I think 13 years or maybe longer. And I remember the first time we met her, we got a chance to meet, you know, after he would get comfortable and he felt comfortable with, you know, the people that he was working with in the band and everything. Of course, we were able to meet and go backstage. And then over years, you know, he worked with Donna Summer. Donna Summer was really generous to our family, as a matter of fact. She would, you know, we were a part of church, and if we would go on a missions trip, she would fund it. Just like they really became a part of our family as we, you know, knew them longer and longer, and he worked with them for so many years. And I think, like I said, I was 15 when he started with Olivia Newton-John, and I always dreamed of being a singer, and I just would watch the shows and go backstage, and the whole thing was very exciting. I wouldn't say it ever became normal. It was, you know, even now, I actually haven't even met Ringo, and he's been working with Ringo now coming on, I think, 5 years. And I haven't had a chance to meet him yet. I've met everybody else in the band, but you know, I don't think it'll ever get old. It's you know, it's such high caliber of musicianship that, you know, it's always been very inspiring and, you know, awesome in a sense for me. So
it's fun.
I always thought it was cool.
With Olivia Newton-John, it's not happening now because of the times we're in. But actually, I was hosting an event with Olivia Newton-John coming up in April, which has now been obviously postponed. So, and I've never met her, so I'm kind of looking forward to that. And she was an influence kind of on my life. Like I'm 51, so the whole Grease thing, you know, was a big part of me growing up. So let's talk about you. So when did you realize you had this talent to become a singer and a songwriter? Was it from a very young age? Were you sitting there side stage singing songs? Did you go home and write songs when you were like 13 and 14? Or give me kind of how that process happened for you.
Yeah. So I was singing before I was talking. They have video of me when I was 9 months old singing. And that was always what I knew I wanted to do. And as I got older, I would kind of tinker around on the piano. We had lots of instruments in our home. My mom is an elementary school music teacher. So, you know, she would always encourage me to get up and perform. And it started very young. My kindergarten graduation, I sang a solo. Or actually my preschool Christmas show, I sang a solo. And it's funny now because I have children preschool and kindergarten age, and they're shy. They would never get up and sing in front of everybody. But I was like, okay, yeah, I just would get up and sing, you know, songs. And then I started writing around, 9 or 10. Then I worked with Disney for a little bit as a child. I did like their sing-alongs. And then I would get hired to write and also do session work for demos for artists. Like, you know, they'd want to pitch a song to Hillary Duff, so they'd get me in a room to write and do a demo. At that time, none of my songs really got picked up, but I feel like it was a great, you know, I was working with this producer named Ku Carell, who ended up going on to write Umbrella for Rihanna and Single Ladies for Beyonce. And growing up 10, 11, 12, 13, working with him, helping him try to pitch songs to these young artists, it really helped me as a singer-songwriter. And also he would have me do these harmonies, backgrounds, help me as a session singer. So I did session work up until about 19. My last session that I did was for Britney Spears for her Femme, Fatale album. And then after that, I went to school, studied music, and then I kind of fell into the YouTube thing, which I started making videos. I was working a job in skincare and lifestyle and started making those types of videos. And then my creativity flourished in a lot of different directions. And So that's kind of where I'm at today, and then I went on to have family and kids, and my YouTube kind of followed me along on that journey. So, but yeah, it started very young, for sure.
You have a song that came out late last year, so Feels Like Home, and it's interesting because of the title of it. And, well, we're all now sitting at home, let's face it. And it kind of ties into your YouTube really cool because really it's about home and healthy and living well. I mean, I watched a couple of them over the last couple of days. So it had a nice tie-in to that. Was that kind of where that song came from?
Yeah, I always wanted to incorporate. Once I started YouTube, it was almost kind of awkward because so many YouTubers wanted to become singers. And I always felt like, how am I going to share my music in a way that doesn't seem that where people will kind of understand that it's coming from a really authentic place, and it's not like, hey, I want to be a pop star or whatever. I was trying to find this. How do I express myself in an authentic way? And when I started writing country music, I was always a country fan. Like growing up, as a teenager, obsessed with Shania Twain, Keith Urban, Rascal Flatts. I was listening to that constantly. And so, when I started writing country music, it felt like it really resonated with my life. It was coming from a truly authentic place, and I could write about what my life was about. And so that's why I think it all kind of goes together, because that's the reality of my life, is my home and my children. And that's the phase of life that I'm in right now. That's the season of life that I'm in. And so my music reflects that. And I think it will always continue to reflect where I'm at in my life. And so in a way, I wouldn't say it was completely purposeful, but when I wrote Feels Like Home, I just knew this is the first song I'm ready to kind of debut at. It felt the most authentic and comfortable, rather than trying to go the pop route or any of these other avenues that I could have gone from, transitioning from session work. So it just felt like a really natural place to start.
And so tell us about your latest one called Backseat Driver. And we were talking before, I had not heard it yet. It was just sent to me recently. So I have not heard this. So if you're describing the song to me and kind of the purpose behind that song, what would it be?
Yeah, so it's a country rock song, and it's a little sassy. I think upon first listening, you might think I'm talking about people who tend to patronize. And I think that in a sense it could be perceived as that. But really what I was talking about is the idea is I don't need a backseat driver. Not only do I not need to be patronized in the sense that people a lot of times want to limit you from doing things that you feel strongly about, but sometimes we limit ourselves, and we have these, I guess, voices in our heads, if you will, that say, no, you can't do that. You're not good enough. You're not talented enough. You're not pretty enough, strong enough, whatever it might be that holds you back. And so I wanted to write Backseat Driver as a kind of in your face, like, no, I'm going to try, even if that means I fail sometimes, that when you try things, you put yourself out there. And a lot of times there's benefit in that, rather than listening to the naysayers or even your own brain that sometimes is the naysayer. So that's what Backseat Driver is about.
So what do the next couple of years look like for you? I mean, at this point, nobody knows what anything looks like even a week from now. But but barring that, what's kind of your plans over the next couple of years? Continuing to release singles out? Do you have a band that you play with? Do you tour down in California? What do things look like in the next little bit for you?
Yeah, so, like I said, before all this kind of happened, I just started doing live shows. I was just getting a band together. I was actually playing in a really great 70s country rock cover band, and we were just getting ready to do our first gig before all of this went down. And honestly, for me, it's just continuing to make my own music, continuing to release it, most likely singles. I'd love to do a full album, but singles seem to make sense right now in this kind of day and age of Spotify. So I'm kind of working on that. And then, once I'm able to perform again, I'll be out and about. I'll be performing with my cover band and then also with my own band. And just growing as a musician. I've seen my dad over the years get so much better from just getting out there and doing it and practicing. And just growing as a musician over the next few years. That's really my goal. And I think that's what I'll be up to.
So you just mentioned something you did learn from your dad, because my next question was going to be, at this point, if you look back, what are some of the things that he has taught you from playing over the years with some of these, celebrities, stars, whatnot, and what do you take with you today?
Yeah, I think, I saw the nitty gritty of what it meant to be a musician. And even now, I feel like I'm a really eclectic person in terms of my creativity. So I do like to practice, and I try to practice every day. But I also have all these other creative outlets. My dad was he practiced hours and hours and hours every day, and he plays multiple instruments. He plays sax, harmonica, keyboard, flute, background vocals, and he was making his living entirely off of his musicianship. And so it was incredibly inspiring to see him grow. I mean, he picked up the saxophone later in his 30s. So, just to hear him really fail time after time after time at home, and then to see him get on stage and nail it and sometimes not nail it, and having to get in the car with him after the gig and him be like, I didn't nail it, and kind of knowing what that feels like to be a musician, it's really sobering and also inspiring. And so for me, it's given me a lot of insight at a lot of times people give up so soon, way too soon, and they don't give themselves the time that it really takes to get good at something. And that takes years and years and years of dedication and practice. And, you got to put in the 10,000 hours. So I think that that's what I really got from him. And he still, he just handed me a book the other day. He's like, I want you to read this book. And it's the Nashville number system, and focusing a little bit more on that, reading charts and writing charts and stuff like that. And so he's always giving me little tidbits of advice, but really persistence was the one thing I really learned from him. So.
Have you been to Nashville at all? And have you written or recorded down there, or has it just been with you and your team in California?
Yeah, no, I've been to Nashville. I just actually got back from Nashville. I was there in, I think it was early March, end of February, and I did a few live radio things out there. I was writing with a few other artists and collaborating and making music. So I'd love to go back out in the summer if I can. I try to go out there a few times. It's just a wonderful place and so much great energy and musical talent. It's just unreal, actually. And so, yeah, I'd love to be out there again. And, yeah, it's a great place. I love it there.
So this is kind of a music industry show, if you will. If you had to give some advice to a young singer-songwriter, somebody who is trying to, make music their career, what would that be?
Yeah, I mean, nowadays it looks so different from even when my dad was coming up in music, because you can do a lot more yourself in terms of distributing music. Like, I use TuneCore to distribute my music to iTunes and to Spotify, and I do all the cover art, and I'm not signed to a label, so I'm an independent artist who's kind of doing all the behind the work scene, stuff myself, but also trying to grow as a musician. And that there's a lot of different facets that go into making an artist nowadays. And I think just trying to hone your musicianship skills. If you're a songwriter, just writing a ton of songs, getting out there, not being afraid to put yourself out there. Like I said, the putting yourself out there and sometimes failing is a part of it. And also just educating yourself. I mean, as simple as YouTube tutorials, you can look it up on Google, just how to improve as an artist from the back end standpoint as well. Understanding distribution, advertising, all that. It's really a part of getting your music out there, and something I'm constantly trying to learn and become better at. So I just, stay the course, be consistent, be persistent. And I think that would probably be my biggest advice.
So let's plug your YouTube channel. Like I said, I watched some of it, and I thought it was really cool, even from a male's perspective. Home, healthy, living well. Yeah. I still love I think you have one called "Stay Home, Clean with Me," which I think you just put out recently, and I'm thinking that's kind of perfect for this social distancing, right? Like,
well, it cracks me up how many people really like to watch me clean my house. I don't fully understand it, but I also understand the aspect of it's something we all have to do. Yes. But yeah, my channel is definitely lifestyle, home related. I do put my music on my channel as well. But if you're looking for inspiration in that department, also we live on a 3-acre property. We have a garden and, lots of animals and things. And so I'm always sharing tidbits of that as well. My husband was a chef for 13 years. So we like to share recipes. So that's youtube.com/Rachel Talbott. And then you can find my music on Spotify, iTunes, pretty much wherever music is sold. Feels Like Home, my single is being played on the radio right now. And I have a new single coming out called Dreamcatcher. I put up Backseat Driver, and then Dreamcatcher's coming out in the next few days here, actually. So just pumping out music, pumping out content, trying to stay busy. And so that's where you can find me.
And then in 2021, when we're all let out of the house, you can go on tour somewhere. Listen, Rachel, I appreciate your time. You're awesome to talk to. You've got so many great things going on. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you so much for having me. Have a good one. Stay safe.
Yeah, you too.